we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you to our Week 6 Around the NCAA recap. Of course, your Pitt Panthers coming off a devastating 24-17 loss at the hands of the Louisville Cardinal, their second straight season falling to Louisville. It was a devastating loss, namely because it seemed self-inflicted by the Panthers. A late interception hurt their chances to come away with a victory as they had the opportunity to march down the field for the winning score. Couple of big plays given up against. They gave up two huge fourth down conversions late in the game, and really just everything that could have went wrong in the final 2 minutes or so of the game did go wrong. It was a fantastic performance from Maurice French in the losing effort. 8 receptions, 124 yards. His biggest game of the year. He did have 2 drops, but they were on like the first drive. Paris Ford, 7 tackles and a deflection. Keyshawn Camp, a 3-sack performance. I think 7 sacks overall for the Panthers. So it was a pretty solid game, you have to say, but they just didn't come up with the plays when they needed to. Ended up giving up 297 passing yards, which is their worst game of the season in that regard. And they just, things fell apart when they needed to succeed for Pitt. So they end up with their second loss of the season already. Devastating for national title hopes. They can still win the ACC, of course, because the only loss they had was cross-division. If they win all their divisional games, they'll more than likely still win the ACC Coastal Division title. But they'll have to compete with the likes of Virginia Tech, who is now 3-0 in the ACC after a 27-24 over then unbeaten Miami. Virginia also had a big win. Wake had a big win over Georgia Tech to go to 5-1. The Panthers will play them this week. Florida State beat Maryland. Boston College lost. NC State beat Duke. And Clemson with a big win over North Carolina. If we look around the country, Texas came out victorious over Oklahoma in a gigantic Red River shootout, so that's a huge win for the Longhorns. Bama beat then unbeaten USF. Michigan State over Nebraska. Rice with a huge upset of Felipe Franks in Florida, 26-21, so a shocking victory there. Houston stays unbeaten with a victory over UConn. Colorado, huge upset win, 49-35 over Stanford. Auburn just escapes fellow unbeaten Kansas State, 28-23. Ohio State has to escape in overtime against Iowa, 36-33, so another close game for the Buckeyes, but they do win. Georgia knocks off Tennessee, 38-24. The Vols already with 3 losses this season. Arkansas still unbeaten as they beat UMass 35-16. Penn State beats Illinois. USC knocks off former or defending national champion Washington, so tough season for them. LSU 77-17 over South Alabama. The Tigers are still incredible right now. And UCLA put up 63 as they beat Cal, so some ridiculous offensive performances. We look around the country. Joe Burrow, NCAA Player of the Week, 300 yards passing, 5 incompletions. He had 7 total touchdowns. I think he threw for 4, ran for 3 or something of that nature. It was just a ridiculous performance by Joe Burrow, the LSU quarterback. Neville Clark, Player of the Week, 2 picks for UCF in their matchup. Kelly Bryant was ACC Player of the Week, 6 total touchdowns and over 350 yards for him in the victory over UNC. And redshirt sophomore cornerback Jim Charles gets Defensive Player of the Week for Florida State. And with that performance by Burrow, he's still top of the Heisman leaderboard. Kelly Bryant climbs up to 2nd. Ty Story, Arkansas's quarterback, 3rd. B.J. Emmons of Bama at 4th, and Tommy Stevens, the Penn State quarterback, sitting at 5th, but still very early in the season as far as those standings are concerned for the Heisman race. Burrow looks like the easy leader in the clubhouse as it stands right now, though. Coach's poll, of course, with the games at hand, and Oklahoma's loss, they're going to fall back all the way to number 10. UCLA jumps up to 2, LSU 3, Ohio State 4, Penn State 5, Auburn 6. If you look at some of the notable unbeatens there, Virginia Tech is there at 9. Oklahoma State, NC State at 14 and 15 with unbeaten records as well. Arkansas at 17. They're 6-0 already, but the tough part of their schedule is still to come. So a lot of good teams. Houston, I think, is down in the rankings board. Pitt falls back to 21, so they're not out of the rankings, but definitely, hurts them overall. Louisville jumps up to 19 with their victory over the Panthers. And you can see UAB at number 25, unbeaten, 4-0 as well. So the rankings shaking up a little bit. You can see the undefeated teams kind of moving towards the top of the leaderboard, and we'll see if this week has anything interesting to shake out, because another big game, Clemson-Louisville, huge game for the ACC Atlantic Division title. Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, ACC battles heating up here. Virginia's got an FCS school to play against. Miami takes on Notre Dame, so another big game for a couple of ranked schools that have national championship and ACC championship aspirations. Syracuse, NC State as well, and Boston College plays this week. Clemson-Louisville, if you take a look at that matchup, though, I mean, Clemson's pretty much favored across the board. Number 8 in total defense, incredible offense as well, so you expect them to win. Washington takes on Stanford. The Huskies need to win if they don't want to fall to 500 already. Miami and Notre Dame in South Bend, so Herbstreit does like the Fighting Irish in that one. USF just coming off their first loss to Alabama. They're still ranked. They're taking on undefeated Houston. Should be a really, really big game there. LSU, of course, unbeaten, taking on 5-1 BYU. They haven't played a ton of teams, but they're still a good, solid school. And your Pitt Panthers will be taking on at-home Wake Forest. So the Panthers will return home, looking to come away with a victory, back to their winning ways, go to 4-2, get their first ACC win of the season. But it's not going to be easy. Wake is a very talented school. You can see 2-0 in the ACC already, 5-1 overall. Very good offensively. Number 10 offense in the country, number 10 passing offense in the country, and they're a good rushing team as well at 192 yards a game. Their defense, though, very, very poor. So it'll be interesting. The Panthers' offense has not been very good, and Pitt defense has been very good. Wake's offense has been very good. Their defense has not been very good. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, and it'll be an interesting matchup because the two bad parts for each team will go against each other. The two good parts for each team will go against each other. You see the Panthers really nothing going on the ground. So if they can get a little bit of a rushing attack going against this Wake Forest team, it'll really add some diversity to their offensive attack and really help them play well. Their big guy they're going to have to contend with, though, Kendall Hinton, 13 touchdowns against just a single interception, 1,600 passing yards already, and he can run the ball as well. He's got a bit of speed and can move around as need be. Wake lost their opening game to Indiana 20-24, and since then they've been on a tear. Wins against UTEP, Ohio, Marshall, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. The only thing for them to say is they haven't really beaten anybody of substance. They beat Ohio pretty well, who the Panthers played, but otherwise they haven't really beaten anybody spectacular, and they do have a very good roster, though. Pretty well balanced. The one thing they are lacking, you have to say, is depth. They don't have a ton of depth. We'll see here at the wide receiver position. Don't have a ton of depth on defense either, but they do have Kendall Hinton at the helm at quarterback. Very good player. 5 rushing touchdowns, 13 passing touchdowns against just a single interception so far this year. He's got good speed as well. He's got 2 fantastic running backs at his disposal in Cade Carney, who's got 464 yards already, and Isaiah Robinson, 390 yards through 6 games this year. They've combined for about 145 yards a game and 11 touchdowns. So very, very solid there. They don't have a ton of depth at receiver, though, so the fact they've been passing for this many yards probably speaks to the fact that they didn't play against a ton of great defenses, because other than Stephen Claude, 88 overall, they really don't have a lot of outstanding talent at the wide receiver position. They only have 3 receivers at 75 or better. Then everybody else drops into the 60s. They do have a very good tight end in Jack Frodenthal, though, but after him, nobody. If they go into a 2 tight end set, they don't have a ton of guys. Now, they do typically use 11 personnel, though, 1 tight end, 1 running back. They have great players there. Some good receivers, but not a lot of depth. Same thing with their offensive line. It's solid, very, very good. Suren's their best player at 89 overall. Stiegel's their weak link, 76 overall center. But they have a pretty solid lineup there. You have to say that their offensive line, mid-80s pretty much around the board, so decent ability, though the Panthers' defensive line, if you compared them rating-wise, the Pitt defensive line should be better. What'll be interesting here is the matchup of the Wake defensive line against the Pitt offensive line. They have some good top-end players. You can see there they got Rodney, Kamara, and Weidman, very, very good defensive tackles. But the Panthers have struggled, especially on the right side of their offensive line. So if they can hold up well, then I like this matchup for the Panthers because Wake doesn't have a ton of depth. If Pitt can run the ball with a little bit of conviction, can keep the Wake defense on the field, tire those players out, force them to bring in some backups and things like that, Pitt should do very well. LaRondé Liverpool, a guy to watch, though. He's their 2nd-rated middle linebacker, but he's already been ACC Player of the Week once, and I think NCAA Player of the Week. He's been a very good player for them. They don't have a ton of depth at corner, though. Henderson and Bassey are their top 2 corners, but Pitt's slot guys and guys that are going to be marked up with their nickel corners, their linebackers, etc., should be able to find some area of the field. So it'll be interesting to see how Pitt will be able to take advantage of, like I said, pretty much a thin Wake Forest defense. Jesse Bates, spectacular player, though. The redshirt senior at strong safety is one to definitely watch this season. Wake's even got good solid kicker and punter as well. So they're pretty solid around the board. If Pitt can, establish a rushing attack, limit the turnovers, I think they should be potentially able to come away with a victory. But let us know what you think in the comments. Who's going to win? What's the score going to be? And we'll see you in that episode, Pitt versus Wake Forest. As always, guys, hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.